What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard. At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought. Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it. I award you no points, and may God have mercy on your soul.
You know, I envy the writers of Rings of Power. I'm jealous because they can write something bad and still get paid. I'm a professional writer who made hundreds of thousands of dollars writing for a living. If I deliver bad writing for a client, I get back the text and I have to endlessly revise it until it's good. Because if it's not good, I don't get paid. However, that concept doesn't seem to exist in the universe of Rings of Power. God, I wish I would land a gig like this so I can write the first shitty draft in 15 minutes and then chill with my kid all day long, but that's not the case. So let's get this over with. I'm gonna cover the basic storyline of the first 3 episodes of this travesty. I'm not gonna bother reviewing this show episode by episode, I'm not a masochist. Instead, let's see all the storylines that happen in these 3.5 hours and cover each of them, shall we? He tries to reason with like 40 orcs in a room, sees the deception from one of them, kills him, and then gets backstabbed by Adar. Then all the orcs jump him and he explodes some blue stuff that kills nobody and turns himself into black goo that runs through the cracks on the floor. Why is the Dark Lord trying to reason with a handful of orcs? Why not show them terror and appear as the Dark Lord? Orcs follow strength and fear, and if you get them afraid, they'll do what you tell them. Why are you trying to reason with them? And what are you getting with 40 orcs? Why aren't there thousands of orcs here? Why is everything so small? Fast forward some time and the goo eats a rat and then leaves through a cave system and picks itself up on a carriage. There, it kills some random guy and turns into Halbrand. Then we see him sad, pondering with watering eyes next to a fire because he got backstabbed. Why? What's the point of this? Are we trying to empathize with the Dark Lord Sauron, the Deceiver, the Destroyer of Lands, the right hand of Morgoth? What's wrong with these writers? He's pure evil, not a misunderstood teenager who would have done better if he knew better. Then we get him to the ship where he meets Galadriel and we get his backstory. What's the point of the backstory? It's to introduce the motivation and purpose of the character. We just spent 15 minutes on Sauron's backstory and it wasn't even the backstory. All we got was a partial moment in his relationship with Adar, nothing else. We know nothing more about Sauron now than we knew 15 minutes ago. It's just filler. Then something really stupid happens. Sauron goes to Mordor and lets himself get captured so he can talk to Adar. Of course, Adar doesn't recognize him even though he saw his face in season 1. It's the same face. Then Sauron tells Adar that he wants to save his people in return for giving him information. People that Sauron doesn't even care about. But he tells him that he has no idea what Sauron looks like, where he is and what his plan is. But elves will know and Sauron will get that information from them. What's the point of this? If you want to relay Adar this information, there are much better ways to do so. Especially since Sauron then has to rush to Celebrimbor to make the rings before Galadriel and the High King inform him that Halbrand is Sauron. So he has no time to sit in Adar's jail, he's racing against the clock. The father of the orcs and his beloved children. I thought in season 1 that the writers wanted me to empathize with the orcs, especially when Galadriel spoke with Adar, telling him she will slaughter him, his children, and all of the orcs like she is the main villain of the show. In this season, my suspicions have been confirmed. We're presented with orcs that don't want to go to war. They have a place to stay, and they don't want to move from it nor wage war against anyone. They just want a home and they finally settled in Mordor. It's like they're presented as poor refugees who just want a peaceful place. And then we see one of the orcs kissing his wife and his baby and going to prepare for war. I'm not gonna talk about the lore aspect of this scene because I'm not a Tolkien expert, but I am a writer. And you do this kind of a thing when you want your audience to empathize with the character on screen. Is the point of this scene to empathize with the orcs? This isn't World of Warcraft, where orcs are quite different beings than in Lord of the Rings. Involved, they're mindful beings whose world was destroyed by fell magic and they're seeking a different world to live in. In Lord of the Rings, they should be the embodiment of pure evil, an army of Palpatines, not a nuanced race that simply wants a peaceful place to call home. Why didn't we see this scene with Númenóreans, or dwarves, or elves? Do you want me to root for the orcs? Celebrimbor should be one of the wisest elves in existence, but he is presented as a gullible fool, a useful idiot who follows Sauron's plan every step of the way. And he does so with ease. Somehow he doesn't get the message that Halbrand isn't Sauron because the plot needs that to happen. And then he convinces Celebrimbor to make the power of rings so he can corrupt others. At one moment, Sauron tells Celebrimbor that he is sent from Ilúvatar himself. Actually no, Celebrimbor makes that conclusion himself and immediately thinks that Sauron is a good being. Like, dude, why are you so easy to trust the guy just because he stepped into fire and transformed himself into an elf and told you he's Anatar, the Lord of the Gifts? Shouldn't you relay this information to your king?
Nah, it'll be fine.
Elrond steals the ring and runs to the edge of the forest, disobeys his king and jumps into the water, only later to face zero repercussions for doing so. The rings are given to Círdan, who hears the voice from the rings and decides to keep them. Precious. The rings are returned and the High King Círdan and Galadriel get to keep them. I understand the High King, but why these two? Why is the king giving it to Galadriel? So Elrond's like, nah, Galadriel, we're no longer friends. The High King is like, Galadriel, you are still the commander of the northern armies and you can go get Sauron, but only with Elrond. So we spin in circles of these people until we finally get Elrond to lead a group of elves, including Galadriel, to find and kill Sauron. Seems like a good plan. Ah, the dwarves. Their storyline can be best described by saying that I argue with my wife about why there are 3 dirty plates in the sink while my entire house is on fire. The stupid drama between Stubborn and King of Stubborn while the mountain crumbles is one of the most ridiculous plots that we see. Yes, dwarves are stubborn, but they put aside their differences and work together when the entire mountain is collapsing on them. So we're tediously waiting for the inevitable reconciliation that we know is coming, but we need to slog through 3 hours to see it. I understand that there's an argument and that they need to solve it, but you don't need to prolong it so much because we know it will happen and we're just waiting for the drama to stop. And the argument is pretty much pointless. It wasn't anything super serious that would have had some stakes. For example, if the King of Stubborn threw the female dwarf in jail because she could no longer hear the mountain. And then he could accuse her of treason against Khazad-dûm because she's sabotaging the recovery of the city. This would have some stake, this would be serious. With this we would anxiously wait to see what would happen. The 3 children run around Rhûn and try to get to the place from Gandalf's dream. I call them children because they act like it. First of all, Gandalf has no control over his power but keeps using it in the worst possible ways, actively damaging all the people around him. We see this multiple times. When they realize that they're being followed by girl Sam, they make a kindergarten level trap to figure out it's her. Also, the real people who want to harm them and are local to the terrain tell the Blue Wizard that they can catch Gandalf. When the Blue Wizard asks them how they will do so, even when his most powerful wizards couldn't, we don't see the screen break, we get the explanation. Why? Why couldn't you just pan the screen out and leave us in disbelief to wait for what the local people will do? They're the local people who understand and know the terrain, and they have probably ingenious ways to figure out how to catch Gandalf. And then we just learn that they will take female Sam and Frodo and convince Gandalf to come with them. Fine, okay, now at least go do that. Instead we see the local people fail miserably because they confront a wizard head-on. Why? Why didn't you create a trap and catch Sam and Frodo by themselves? You could have easily done that by yourself, knowing the local ways, pitfalls and bottlenecks. Also, the road that Gandalf, Sam and Frodo take, the dangerous one, is a ridiculous joke. I walked the Camino Santiago 2 times and I can tell you that the distance between the hill they were standing on and the hill across the desert was less than 15 kilometers. That's 3 to 4 hours of walking, and they're not even walking through deep sand, which is a lot harder. They're walking through flat, barren land. Yes, it's hot and you should avoid the sun as much as you can, but they didn't even do that in the other route. I really don't know why they didn't present a different visual to this dangerous path. I mean, there are so many locations across the world where you can point the camera and the people will be, oh, there's no way they can take this path. But the image they chose wasn't like even a super difficult path. Back to the plot, and then the bad guys catch them. Gandalf uses his tornado power, and of course Frodo and Sam disappear in the tornado along with the local bad guys. We knew Isildur was alive because he is important in the Third Age. He kills Sauron. So Isildur meets a refugee woman who's super smart and a traitor as well, bearing the mark of Adar on Sauron. And during their encounter, they start going to Pelengir together because some Númenóreans might be there. But they meet an old man on the road, and of course it's an ambush. The refugee woman, because she's a woman, saw this coming, but Isildur, a Númenórean soldier, didn't. So they get captured but are saved by Black Legolas, who disposes of the guys with ease. Then we learn that the chick from season 1 who was in love with Black Legolas died because orc arrows take time to kill. So like a Morgoth blade whose wounds don't heal well. Yeah, seems legit. Then we need to remember these people because the last time we saw them was in season 1, and then we get a funeral which should be emotional, but to be honest, like, we feel nothing. Then some free men get ambushed by some monsters, probably trolls under Eddard's control, and this storyline ends. The blind queen is getting coronated because the king died. However, the fat guy wants to dispose of her because she's blind and she killed Númenóreans by bringing them to battle. Isildur's sister steals the Palantir because the late king tells her it exists, and then all of them plan to dethrone the queen. Oh yeah, and they do so in the middle of a tavern, speaking loudly so all 50 people can hear them. Sounds like a smart plan, guys. Then during the coronation, Isildur's sister drops the Palantir, the fat guy tries to destroy it, but the queen says it's hers and everyone starts yelling, "Elvish magic!" Then an eagle flies to the coronation, the fat guy approaches it while everyone starts cheering his name, like he's the savior of Númenor. Besides the plot with more holes than Swiss cheese, there are two more things that really affect the show's world building. The first thing is that everything's small in this show. We come to the High King and you always see like 10 people in total. 2 guards, 5 people, Elrond, Galadriel and the High King. We've never seen the place where the High King resides. We don't know the place, we haven't seen the buildings, the commoners, anything. Círdan's place is the same. It's basically 3 CGI houses, 1 boat, and 4 people working on wood carving. For dwarfs, we always get the same 3 scene. Stubborn's house, King of Stubborn's hall, and the aerial shot of the Khazad-dûm bridge. For Adar, he is surrounded by a small World War I tunnel, and we see like 10 slaves and 30 orcs in total. Sauron is betrayed in a 40 square meter room by 30 orcs in total. Celebrimbor's place is one single tower with 5 people in it and 2 guards outside. Númenor is one tavern of 20 people and the main hall in the castle where we see 30 people on a coronation of the queen of the country. It's like, why didn't you get 100 people as extras just to stand around on the coronation? You at least get a bigger scale of the place. You need more people and you need different types of people and different types of building if you want to do world building the right way. You spent $1 billion on this and you tell me you couldn't get 1,000 people to attend the queen's coronation. How about having 300 orcs when Sauron speaks to them? Or having a bigger port where Círdan builds his magnificent bows? And this lack of scale is only emphasized by not following the rule that geography is everything. Traversing in the world gives it a sense of size. You can't simply teleport people around. Sauron jumps on a horse in Mordor and reaches Celebrimbor in a matter of hours in the show. In Middle-earth terms, those two places are thousands of miles apart. The writers don't even present the geography or a map to us so that we can understand where things are. This will give you a sense of the geography and scale of the world those characters are living in. But we get people who simply jump from one location to another in a matter of hours or days. There are no visible seasonal differences, no idea if it's summer or winter, so we have no idea how much time has passed between these travels. However, it's impossible for Galadriel and the High King to send a messenger to Celebrimbor to inform him that Halbrand is Sauron and at the same time have Halbrand travel to Mordor, get captured by Adar, stay in jail for days, and then get back to Eregion and have the orcs who follow him get there in time to slay the messenger so that Celebrimbor doesn't get the message. It simply doesn't add up. And the reason the writers don't show us the map when things happen is they don't have a sense of geography or how the characters should move. A stroll from Eregion's Ostinedil, where Celebrimbor resides, to Khazad-dûm is at least 150 kilometers. Not to mention that the distance from the entrance to the mines of Moria to Khazad-dûm is about 60 kilometers, and the Dwarven city is at the east end, around the bridges of Khazad-dûm. So we see Elrond and the company easily stroll around like in an afternoon in their gowns for 200 kilometers in one direction. Game of Thrones had a great sense of geography until two last seasons, but they could have taken what was great from it. Also, Lord of the Rings. The movies did a great job when it came to geography, where they show the distances and how long it takes to go from one place to another in a really good way. That's why the people of Shire weren't so concerned with Mordor. It's not easy to be concerned when Mordor is about 3,000 kilometers away from you, or the distance from New York to the Mexican border. You know, it saddens me to see the state of writing in this show. Heck, I was born and raised in a war-torn third world country in the Balkans. And I believe that I could have done a better job. And you know why? Because I respect the source material. I believe that Tolkien is 100 times better writer than I am. And that's why I would borrow everything I can from his books to write the script. Because I know that when people sit down to watch Rings of Power, they sit down to watch Tolkien, not someone else. So give people Tolkien, not your corrupted, bleak and diluted version of it. But in the end, this is not Tolkien's show. It's a shit show.